Okay, starting Siman Reish Samach Hey, Sif Aleph. Says the Mechaber, Ein Neisten Kli Menukov Mole Shemen. You're not allowed to put a Kli which is Menukov, which has got a hole in it, Mole Shemen, full of oil, Al Pi Haner, Kadesh Yed Noitef Besoichai, that it will sort of supply the lantern with oil, with oil so that it would burn. The concern is that if it's a separate component which has got the oil and that's feeding into the bowl which has got the wick, the concern is you might come and take from that separate kli which has the oil, because you need oil for Shabbos, you want to put it on your salad or something like that. If, however, you connect the two, i.e. the supplying bowl of oil, with the bowl which has the wick in it, and you connect it either with sid or with charsis, with lime or with clay or something, to kiven shul kli echod bodel minei mishum isa Shabbos. If it's one kli, then you're not going to touch it. But if it's a separate kli, which is somehow feeding into it, then we're choshesh that you're going to take from that oil. Says the Mishnah Berurah, Sif Cotton Aleph, Mimenu. The kiven should be kli acher, since the oil is in the separate kli, she'ein haner b'soicha, where the candle is or the wick is not there, lo bodel minei, where you might not sort of hold back from touching or taking from that supplying oil. For kiven shiktu l'ner, and since it's been set aside to supply the ner, hamistapik chayav mishum mechaber, the person who takes it it's a shaila of mechaber, of extinguishing. There are those who say that if you're taking the oil, it's an issa drabon, it's not an issa deraisa. Because an issa deraisa of mechaber is when you're trying to make coals. You're extinguishing some wood in order to make coals. We'll get there and discuss that. Because it's the Chazal made a gezerah, even though it's only the kibui in question is Rabbanan, they were still worried about it. Okay, so that's Sif Aleph. So Sif Aleph is when you've got a separate keli of oil supplying your other keli, which has got the wick in it. That is a problem, is we're worried that you might come to take from the oil, which is a shaila of kibui. However, Sif Beis, Lo Yimale Odom Ka'ara Shemen, V'yitnena b'tzad haner, v'yitin rosh ha'psila b'soicha b'shvil shatei sho'eves, k'zer shem yistamik menu. So a similar sort of contraption in Sif Beis, but that is not where you've got a separate bowl of oil which is feeding into the other bowl where you've got the wick, but rather you've got a ka'ara of shemen, and you put it next, and you've got a ner next to it, and you've got like a long wick. V'yitin rosh ha'psila b'soicha b'shvil shatei sho'eves, and it's sort of drawing from the bowl of oil. It's the same idea that you might take from the supplying oil. That's the problem. Says the Mishnah Berurah, Gimel Rosh Hapsila Rotzolema Kotza Hashen Me'apsila, the other end of the wick, She'ena Doilek Yitain Hapakar Lishev Hashem, and you're putting it in the kara to draw oil from the supplying bowl. V'sal Kedai Techamina Kivin Da'apsila Munachas Gam B'kara Yeh Bodel Minei Kamash Melon Da'afilu Hochi Gazrina. I might have thought in the previous case it's in a separate bowl and therefore there's more likelihood you'll take from it, but in this case less so. Kamash Melon still goes there and you can't do it. And again, if you connect the two that it becomes one bowl, then we're not worried that you're going to take from the oil. Okay. Gimel. If you're not allowed to put a kli underneath dripping oil, because that oil is muktzah, and you putting a kli underneath it, you're sort of making that kli dysfunctional. You're being mevatel kli mehechona. You're sort of taking away the possibility of using the kli for its regular purposes, using it as a bowl. And you're not allowed to be mevatel kli mehechona. It's a shaila in muktzah, which Mr. will get to in more detail. But he's referring to it over here, because we're talking about the hadlokas neris and these things. So therefore, it's referred to here. However, you can put it there before Shabbos to catch the falling oil. But any dripping oil, you can't use that. So if you've got a bowl, you've got a sort of a very primitive type of candelabra of a bowl with oil and a wick, and some is dripping underneath it. So then you can put a kli there before Shabbos to catch the dripping oil, but not on Shabbos itself, because you can't be mevatel kli me'echonai on Shabbos itself. Okay, let's just do the Mishnah Berurah till there, and then we'll continue the Ramah. Says the Mishnah Berurah, lekabel shemen avol sif cotton hay avol mutzer loses tachas haneh shel shayva shel chaylev. You're allowed to put a bowl to catch the dripping wax or fat or something like that. We're worried it might cause a fire or something. And you put a kli on top of that kli. To give the efsha because you can just shake it out straight away. And therefore you're not actually making the kli into which it falls sort of dysfunctional. But it's not the same as shemen, which we are worried. You're not going to just chuck it out straight away because oil is expensive, and therefore you're not going to be mena'er, you're not going to shake it out and be mafsid it. To put a kli underneath the wick at the top, that you can't do unless it's going to cause a hefsid. Afal gav. Even though afterwards you can shake it out, even momentarily. Okay, so you can't put the kli there to catch the dripping oil. It's a shayla mevatel kli mehechonai. Says the Mishnah Berurah you've got involved. What does that mean? Because this kli was a regular kli. You could use it for whatever purpose. Now you can't. Machmas hashemen shebesoicha, because of the shemen that's in it, and that shemen was shel muksa machmas issa. It was set aside for burning, and therefore it's muksa machmas issa. Kamesha kosa b'siman reish ayin tes. V'chachamim also levatel kli me'echonoi b'nei shedoima ki ilu soiser hakli meshabra. What's the it's a drabanan? It's as if you're breaking the kli. And therefore, it's you're making a kli dysfunction. It's got a din of soiser the kli or meshabed the kli, and Chazal say that you can't therefore make a kli on Shabbos dysfunctional. I remember one time. I'll tell you in a second. If, however, in the kli you put something which is mutter, then mutter lanicha tachas haneh lekabel b'shemen. Then that would be okay. Okay, so again, it gets a bit technical into the halachas of muktzah, but we're familiar with this. If you've got a kli and you've got not dover osa in it, but you've got dover hamutah v'ha'osa, so then it's okay. Now the classic example is the candlesticks on Friday night. If you've got a sefer on the candlestick tray, and then you've got the candlesticks on it, and the candlesticks go out, so not moving it when the candles are still alight, then that tray doesn't become a bosses ledava also, it's dava also v'hamuta. But I'll tell you where I had an interesting application of this. Many years ago I was in a shul, and it was Friday night, Kabbalah Shabbos had begun already, I think. And if it was before Shabbos, there's no problem with mevatel kli me'echonai. But on Shabbos itself, and the air conditioning was dripping, and it was making a little puddle. So a fella said, well, just take a bowl and put it there, and then you'll catch the water. And another guy, who's obviously as a Talmud Chacham, he said, yeah, but you mevatel kli me'echonai, and he quickly went to the kitchen in the shul there, and he got a can of tuna, and he put it in the bowl, so it's not going to get just, and that way it became a bosses l'dav ha'osav ha'amutza, and therefore there's no problem. But that's another good application of this. Okay, Oid Eitza, another Eitza would be, we're 5 lines from the bottom towards the end. Oid Eitza acheres kosav b'tshuvas hamaril v'hiskim imay mogen avram to yosim kli miboydium tachas ha'shulchan. I don't really understand this line, I'll be honest with you. You put a kli tachas this bit I understand, the next bit I don't understand. Tachas ha'shulchan. You put a kli tachas ha'shulchan, or b'shabbos acha achila yoses ha'shulchan. You just remove the shulchan, you're not putting the kli there. The kli is just sort of being exposed by taking the shulchan away. Then suddenly you're revealing this kli tachas the shulchan, which is tachas haneh, and that would be okay. And if it's now dripping into this kli, you're not being mevatel kli mechon by putting it there. You're removing a shulchan. Okay, but after going b'Shabbos levatel kli mechon al de hasaras shulchan, true, you're being mevatel kli by removing the shulchan. Mikol makom, sorry, it's okay. Kimin she'einu mevatel b'yodayim b'Shabbos. You're not actively putting the kli there and being mevatel it. Okay. Now the next line I don't quite understand. tachas haner, we do not refrain from putting the kli on Shabbos on the shulchan underneath the ner. Aval pi shenofer bo shemen ki ein miskaven lekach. You're not allowed because you don't intend to do this. I don't really understand this because that's Mechaber says you can't do it, so I'm not really sure what the Mishnah is saying here. Anyway, Hochanami ein miskavnin k'shemeisa shulchan. So too, when you remove the shulchan away, you're not miskavin for that. You're just trying to save the table that the oil and the candle won't fall on it. Okay, right. Zayin v'hashemen noitef. So you put, you're allowed to do it miboid yom, and the shemen sort of drips into it. If you're concerned that shemen is going to drip and you put the kli underneath it, and it turns out that no shemen drips, then lo nesa kli letaltzim machshava ba'alma. Just by intending that it becomes a kli to catch this oil, but if no oil actually fell, then your machshava, your intention alone, is not going to be enough to mevatlis, and then you can take the kli away and you can use it for anything else on Shabbos. Over Eli Rabba, on top of the next page, the top line of the Mishnah Berurah, over Eli Rabba Kosov, the imnotaf shemen nesechem beidiyom, if oil drips into it before Shabbos, miskayim machshavtoi, then you're already fulfilled your intention, shechoshav aleh mikri alidezeh, kli shemelachte le'issa, and then you've got a problem that this kli is now also. Even if later the oil falls out, nevertheless, it's still the kli is now muksa. If you put coins on a kli before Shabbos, even though later the kids the little baby took away the money or something, but still that kli is osa. Mikol makom havim yuchad le'issa v'havim muksa. I'm a prima godim. Also listapik. And any oil that drips from this candle, you can't use it on Shabbos. Even if there was good oil in it beforehand, and it's you put it underneath it and it will catch the oil. Bottle, because it's davar matirin. Interesting, because you can say it's bottle barov. I've got 3/4 of a liter of good olive oil in a bowl, and I put it underneath it to catch any dripping oil. And the dripping oil is muktzah, so it's bottle barov. Teretz says it's not, because there's no bittul for davar sheish matirin. Just wait till Motzei Shabbos. Anything which has permitted use at a later date, that's a davar sheish matirin, and therefore it's not bottled. Okay, but she says also l'slap mena b'Shabbos shekva huktzah hashem ben hashmoshes, because already at ben hashmoshes this oil has been set aside for burning. Or migud iskatzoy ben hashmoshes. Laner is katzoy lekuli yom, is also for the rest of Shabbos. V'gama kli also betiltala de hashemen shenase bossis lo, and the kli is also a problem because it's become a bossis, a base for the muktzah oil. Okay, let's go back to the Ramah now. V'osa liga bener doilek kishel tolu. That's interesting. Are you allowed to touch the candlesticks on Shabbos? So he says here, the Ramah, that you can't touch a hanging ner. Because if it's a hanging ner, even you mamish just touch it, and therefore you're not moving it. Tiltal means you're moving it, but you're just negia ba'alma, it's not tiltal. Mikol mokum osa. Nevertheless, it's also penis nadned ktsas minigiyosoi v'yate. Because the reality is, if it's sort of hanging from the ceiling, imagine, picture an old shul, where it's hanging, so then you've got a problem that it's going to, even a small touch is going to move it. Okay, we'll see about a regular candlestick in a second. Says the Mishnah Berurah, Penny Snadneid, Mashma Mizeh. So the implication from this, says the Mishnah Berurah in Sif Kotan Yud, to belay chashash hatoya, if there's no chashash that the thing is going to move, ein lochash mishum misatil muksa. Then you're not worried, but there's no problem of touching it. Alidei hadnidnud. Because I'm going to rom the marriage the shedova hetz munach olav v'roitz likach menu v'avitziltum natzad l'muta k'meshi kosav sif simen shin yud alef sif ches. Aveliga by mamish also the menorah tuluya. But if it's a hanging menorah, then you shouldn't touch it. Afilu ein haner doilekes peseicha, even if there's no candle burning in it. V'ayim b'behalacha. So the implication from this Mishnah Berurah is to touch the actual candlesticks where there's no concern of them moving it is okay. However, the Magen Avraham seems to disallow this. Yudalef v'yate hashemen el hapsida v'yischai mishum maver. The concern is if you move this hanging candle or light, oil lamp, then your problem is maver if you draw the wick, the oil nearer to the wick. If you take the wick further away from the source of the oil, then it's a shaila of kibu, the opposite. For an oil, a wax candle, we're not worried about this. Okay, let's just finish off the siman dalet. Now this is very interesting. Let's say you've got you're lighting Shabbos candles with oil, and sometimes there are sort of little flickers or sparks of oil which sort of shoot out, and you want to put a kli to touch it. You're worried that you want to catch it, it'll spoil the tablecloth or whatever it is. So noisnim kli tachas haner lekabel nitzoitzos mipnei she'ein bohem mamish, because the oil over there, we're not worried that you're going to use it or things like that. So it's ein bohem mamish. They're not mamish, just tiny little flicks of oil. So we're not worried you're going to use it, and therefore that's not a problem. Putting out that kli tachas haner to catch the sort of the sparks, the nitzoitzos of oil, we're not worried. Mipnei she'ein bohem mamish ve'ein kam bittul kli me'echonoi. Aval lo yitin l'soicha mayim afin me'boyjem. But don't put water onto that kli, because the little sort of I don't know how to call it, the translate nitzoitzos, the sort of sparks of flames or something that shoot out. If you catch it and it goes and you put water in that kli, then it's going to be a shaila of being makarev kibui, and you're sort of extinguishing it a little bit early. However, if you've got a bowl of oil on Shabbos, again back in the day, that's how you'd illuminate the home. You can put water in there, because there you're not intending to extinguish anything. You just want to raise the level of oil. Even the Ramah says, even if you intend to be mechaber, that's also, there are those who say it's okay, because the water is not be'ein, it's underneath the shemen, and then lo have ever gram kibu v'chein noagin. I'll tell you where this is relevant. Sometimes, for those who light with oil, and you've got these little sort of glasses where you put the oil in. Now, what I do every Shabbos, that's one of my jobs, is to get the candles ready, but it's quite a big candle thing, and if you fill it full with oil, it's going to be burning the whole of Shabbos. So what I do is I put half or 3/4 or whatever of water in first, and then oil on top, and then I put my wick in, so I prepare it. That's exactly this. So the Mechaber is saying, no problem, and my purpose is to raise the oil, not to extinguish the oil. And so therefore that would be acceptable. Okay, says the Mishnah Berurah, you've got a new base. Noisen kli afilu b'Shabbos. So you can put a kli even on Shabbos to catch the nitzoitzos, the sparks of flames or whatever that may fall from the candle. Lekabel nitzoitzos, says the Mishnah Berurah, l'shal heves hanotefes min haneh. The flame, not the oil. I said the oil. It's the flame that sort of shoots out from the wick. They shouldn't ignite anything underneath it. Whereas that's okay, because these nitzoitzos ein boy mamish. Says Rashi, says Mishnah Berurah, Yudalet, but nitzoitzos shemiyad hein kovin, because they extinguish immediately. And therefore, if you've got a kli, the little spark, a flame shot out on it and then extinguished immediately, you're allowed to move that kli afterwards. And for that tiny moment, it's not considered bittul kli mechono. It's not enough to make it a dysfunctional kli. Sometimes you get like a little black mark or something that you can't touch. To have a noilad, and therefore, I guess tiltum outside, you can just wipe it away or something like that, but you can't touch it directly. Tesvov afilu mi'ba'odyom. What was that going on? Yeah, you can put it there. But you don't, in this sort of flat tray that you're catching the nitzoitzos, you shouldn't put water in that, even mi'ba'odyom. Normally you're allowed to begin an action before Shabbos, and the melacha will continue during Shabbos. Here is different, there is different why you're allowed to do it before Shabbos. Everyone knows that this is a certain melacha, and therefore you begin before Shabbos. You're not going to do anything on Shabbos itself. With this kli, to catch the nitzotzos, yesh locha shem yachshuv she'em b'zeh shum issa v'yasakein b'Shabbos. You might come to think, what's the big deal? What am I doing already? And therefore you might come to do this on Shabbos, and that's a problem as we've described. V'yesh locha shem yagbiah kliyam mamamayim neged hanitzos. You might raise it closer to the nitzotzos v'chabos on and extinguish it. Okay, that's Tosfos there in Kira. V'ayin sham otam v'atikon amagan avram. Okay, Tes Zayin. So we say you can't put water in this bowl to catch the nitzotzos because it's what's the lashon mekarev zman kibu hanitzotzos. You're sort of extinguishing it sooner. Says the Mishnah Berurah Tes Zayin. Kosovo li Rabbi b'shem isa v'heta kasheyesh sakana deleka. If there's a concern of a fire, then mutalitin klimayim the kabbalah nitzotzos. Then you're allowed to. So in other words, all the above, not putting water in the kli to catch the sort of shooting sparks, that's only prohibited if there's a shaila of bittul klimei chonoi, etc., etc. But if there's a shaila of a fire hazard, then you're allowed to do it. If you see a candle which is drooping, it might fall onto the shulchan. You can put a bowl of water underneath it to catch it. Certainly to get a child to put it there would be allowed. Okay, and then the Mechava finished off, but that's only true for this catching the nitzotzos. But if you've got a regular oil lamp, or Shabbos candles, for example, and you want to raise the level of the oil by putting water there, then that's okay, because as the Ramah says, the Mechava says, She'ein mischaven lekibuy lagbi hashemen. You're not thinking of extinguishing the oil, the lamp, the wick, but rather you're trying to just raise the level of the oil. Says the Mishnah Berurah Zayin, V'alkein lo gazrin sheyasakein b'Shabbos, and therefore for that we're not gozer. Now then the Ramah says, even if you do intend to extinguish the flame, because you don't want, let's say, the candles to be burning the whole of Friday night, then that is mutter. Why? Because it's only gram kibui. Says the Mishnah Berurah Yudches, v'litzim be'erev Shabbos mayim l'toich ha'konesh she'omid bo ner shaiva. So that's with oil. But to put water in a regular wax candle, so that a chaylev or in fat or things like that, that when the candle goes down and then it touches the water, it will extinguish it. That's also l'kula alma. We only allow when it comes to shemen. What's the difference? Because there the eish is mamish going into the water. You've got the water there extant and it's sort of next to it and it's underneath the flame, and therefore that's a problem. It's also, you can't be reliable in a situation where you need to, because there are poskim who say that the whole prohibition is only when the mayim is b'kli acher. But if it's in the same kli, it's okay, because the concern is shemiyasa kein b'Shabbos. Aval b'oisa ne atzmai lo shayach lemigzer sheyasa kein b'Shabbos shakol yodim she'osa liga b'ner hadolak. Everyone knows you can't touch a flame which is lit. Gam yizoyesh litin mayim b'kone kodim shemadlik haner. You should also be careful to put water in a tube before you light. So you can put a candle in a bowl of sand or something. Where it won't burn any further and it will automatically extinguish. But that's another example of gram kibui. Okay, Beseda.